This past fall, my mom gave me this quilt top that her quilting club received as a donation because she thought I might want to make a skirt out of it. I love doing this kind of stuff, and one of the main reasons why I wanted to start sewing as an adult was it so I could upcycle old, unwanted clothes and bedding and make new clothing out of it. I like this idea for two reasons. Number one being that fast fashion has absolutely destroyed the clothing industry, and anything you buy nowadays, the clothes, the fabric, it just falls apart way too easily. Things that were made before the 1980s, some of them still are in existence because they last for years. If you go to a thrift store nowadays, you can find things from the 1980s and before that, maybe the early 90s, but anything that was created after that is either in a landfill or it's going to be in a landfill after a handful of uses. The second reason why I like the idea of upcycling vintage clothing and old fabrics is because it keeps these high quality materials out of a landfill. I wasn't fully in love with all of the colors that this quilt top is composed of, but I wanted to preserve all of the hard work that the quilter had put into it. If you look at the stitches, you can see that everything was done by hand, so she spent hours upon hours making this piece. It's also made in the original style of quilting, which I have great respect for. It's from a time when people would take scrap materials and old clothing, they'd cut them into pieces, and they'd sew them together to create something new. I'm still relatively new to sewing, so instead of trying to figure the design out on my own, I used a wrap skirt that I have as a pattern in order to get the fabric to lay correctly. Like an original quilter, I had to take pieces from around the quilt and sew them together at the sides in order to complete the full wrap skirt pattern. Some of the fabric scraps had worn out, so I had to remove and replace a couple of the squares to make sure my skirt wasn't full of holes. And then after I did that, I cleaned up the back a bit and ironed on some fusible interfacing to strengthen the fabric in order for it to last longer. The belt at the top that ties the skirt together, I made from scrap pieces that I had left over from when I cut out the skirt. Overall, I'm super happy with how it turned out. The project was a lot of fun and also really fulfilling. The woman who started this quilt is likely long gone, but her work didn't go to waste. She probably couldn't even imagine that someday in the future, a random woman was going to take her quilt top and make it into a skirt to be worn for years on end. Just a reminder, you can buy my nature observation journals and composition notebooks at the link down below. Thank you for watching, and Little Maggie says hi.